What's the crusade you're going on? A mission to live your life's purpose and passion. What if this year is the last year of your life? What's your God-sized dream? What do you stand for? Live your best life this year. Now, that's the time. I'm going on a crusade to change people's mindsets every single day. So are you on board? Welcome back to another episode of the Todd Durkin Impact Show. And today we're talking about energy. Does anyone else need even more energy these days? We're off to a great start to 2022. Can I get an amen on that? Please, let's rock and roll. And if it's not, let's flip that switch today. As a matter of fact, today's episode is all about energy and the energy to lead. And this morning, prior to me recording today's episode, I went out for an early morning before the sun rises workout. As always, I got the Jersey dog out for a little walk, and we had a little ramp up period, 20-minute walk. I got on the elliptical, 20 minutes, started to crush on the elliptical, and then a 20-minute HIIT training workout. The phone was not on yet. And let me tell you what, the MyZone was on, and I was crushing some MEPs on the MyZone. And the energy, let me just tell you this, it started off slow. And by the time an hour was up, I was feeling like $1,000,000. And as a simple reminder, we talk about energy. It's everything. Energy is absolutely everything. As a matter of fact, it is my theme for 2022. I've shared that before, but energy is my theme. Y'all know I love acronyms, just like impact is an acronym, just like GYMR is an acronym. Energy is an acronym as well. And for me, this year, 2022, as many of you have shared your themes with me, energy stands for E. It stands for enthusiasm and positive energy. N stands for never quit, never die mentality. No bad habits, N. And then the next E is extraordinary health. He or she who has their health has 1,000 dreams. He or she who does not has one. The R is what? So you have E-N-E-R, resilience. All of us need resilience these days. It seems like if you watch the news, hopefully you don't watch the news very often with everything going on, that we have to have a resilient mindset, and it's very important. G stands for get your mind right so that you can live your God-sized dreams. Yep, get your mind right. Get your mind right to live your God-sized dreams. And the Y stands for three things. I got three Y's in there. Yes, Yahweh, and yoga. I need to say yes to more experiences this year. I need to get even more closer with my faith. I want to lean into my relationship with God. And of course, yoga, I need more flexibility. Anyone else need more flexibility out there? That's my theme this year, energy. And I wanted to share today is a very special episode all on energy, and we're going to call it the energy to lead. And this is with a gal named Natalie Peterson. Check out her bio. Natalie helps leaders become more effective with the people they influence and have the energy to replicate their success. An industry expert, she's the creator of the Stamina Protocol and host of the Mom Entrepreneur Playbook podcast. Her 15 years experience in organizational development and a master's degree in exercise physiology blend together to provide a unique solution for leadership development, retention, and burnout recovery. She holds a master trainer certification in situational leadership, the Leader's Protocol, the Service Protocol, Forte Communication, and is a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach. Natalie has traveled all over the United States and Latin America, implementing stamina and leadership curriculum and coaching into organizations across every industry, from healthcare to retail and global call centers. Furthermore, and this is interesting, Natalie was actually an intern with me from 2011 and then became an employee at Fitness Quest 10 as a trainer and the director of Todd Durkin Enterprises up until 2014. So from 2011 to 2014, we had the chance to actually work together, play together, and do some amazing things. And we're actually going to share some of that at the beginning of the show here. So without further ado, the energy to lead with the one and only Miss Natalie Peterson. Man, I am so pumped up right now. I have Natalie Peterson on the show. Natalie, welcome to the show. Welcome back, should I say here. So welcome.
Yes. Thank you, Todd, so much for having me. I'm really excited about our conversation today. I think it's going to go deep and there's going to be a lot of impact created today.
Man, hey, listen, before I talk about energy, I shared in the opener about you used to work here at Fitness Quest 10 and TDE. 2011 to 2014, you were out here. Let's talk about that. Are you open to talk a little bit about your experience as a trainer and then obviously with TDE?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So what was your role? Share with all of our great listeners today what your role was back in the day.
Yes. Okay. So back in the day, I started out as an intern. So I interned for 3 months and my goal going in, I don't know if you even know this, was I am going to get a job at this place. I don't know how it's going to happen.
I did not know that.
But it's going to happen. I want to work here so bad. So what ended up happening after my internship, I developed some really good relationships with some of the trainers and I ended up being hired in a dual role. So I was a trainer part-time and then part-time director of TDE. So I got to train people in the mornings, essentially, did a lot of yoga and training groups and things. And then in the afternoon, as director of TDE, I was kind of in charge of you, right?
That's a tough job.
I joke, but no, it was my job to help grow TDE's brand, to help develop new programs, and also to help get the word out. So help you be on more stages, coordinate that process, and then also once we started growing our team with interns and other people working underneath the TDE team, it was just my job to help coordinate those efforts and see that our brand was growing with the vision that you had.
Take me back, because that was a decade ago. Where were we at? Do you remember? Like what was TDE like back then? What was I even doing? Was it
man, I can't believe that was a decade ago. Yeah. So when I first came in, we were selling a lot of DVDs still, like hand shipping DVDs, like the OPB and all the 7 series set, all these things. We were shipping a lot of those. And you were doing a lot of travel, but it was a lot of the fitness circuit. So there wasn't so much of the corporate keynotes. You were very much still in the fitness space. And so over those years that I worked there, we went to the digital space quite a bit. So we did the Impact Summit right after Hurricane Sandy. That was our first digital summit, which was like huge undertaking. None of us knew how to do a summit at that point.
Right. 2012. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So we got into the online space, started creating more digital products, and then working with other colleagues and affiliates of ours to figure out how do we launch products? How do we continue to grow our list? And I know you had your email list then because you started that very, very early, but you were doing a couple of newsletters, but we transformed a lot of what we were doing and the content you were sending out and just went from only physical products to having digital products and then getting you speaking on more corporate stages and expanding the reach. So a lot happened in a short amount of time.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about the email list because it was 2006. I went to a workshop. It was Allie Brown. If you don't know Allie Brown, follow Allie Brown. And she changed my business because her whole 3-day workshop was about getting people to sign into your newsletter list. It was called an e-zine at the time. I remember e-zine. So it was the e-magazine. And we had an opt-in on our website, and we built that through speaking and through the opt-ins on our website. And I credit Allie Brown to this day that we went from 0 people on our list to at that time, I don't even remember how many, it was 20, 30,000 people back then from speaking, but that was the start of it. And Natalie, I remember you as an intern because people loved you as a trainer. They loved you. They loved working with you, but you also had this corporate sense about you. And I know a lot of it stems from your father, who is extremely successful and has had a long, long career in coaching and speaking as well. But I still remember, I'm like, man, this girl's got a lot of skills and she could help us because we were really growing at the time and I needed help. And we weren't where we wanted to be. And we never are, right? But
yeah,
we're a huge part of that.
It was definitely divine timing because right when I started as an intern, your current director was leaving. So it was like the perfect transition. And this working with you and working for you, part of that was part of my grand vision of, as you said, I worked with and for my dad for a long time. His career was all in leadership development, organizational development. He taught me so much, but then I got to this place where I wanted to make it my own, and I wanted it to be more about human performance, not just about leadership skills. And that's where Fitness Quest 10 and TDE came in, and kind of combining all these skills together has been quite a journey.
Well, one of the things that you really helped us with, if you remember correctly, you helped us create the Impact Leadership Coaching Program that we went over. Remember, and we did it for Quest Construction and Howard Birch, and that was like a legitimate, still is, we still do that, a legitimate leadership program. And you were a big part of not only bringing in, curating all of the content, but the manual and the presentations, and between you and Amelia Ann back there, I think sitting at my original desk back in the day, that was the beginning of Impact Coaching and Impact, the Day of Impacts and the Impact Leadership Program and everything else. And you were a big part of that, Natalie.
That's one of my best memories from working for you over there at TDE. Is the wall in that office still painted with whiteboard paint? The one wall?
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
That's Julie's office. And if you guys didn't listen, a couple of weeks ago, we had the team on, right? The whole team. Make sure you go back and listen to all the team. But Natalie, as I mentioned in the intro, it is a former teammate now who is doing great things and who is spreading impact. So no, it's no longer a whiteboard, much to my demise. Julie wanted to make it a prettier wall than just my scratch all over the place.
Well, I understand that. Yeah. So that whiteboard is where the original outline of that program was created and pitched. It was done in a fever on a Saturday one day. But yeah, that was an amazing process to create that. So I'm so glad that it lives on and continues to be better and better every year. What
were a few, I guess I'll say, best parts of your job back then?
The people, 100% the people, the culture. If you've been to Fitness Quest 10, if you've been involved in TDE in any way, you know that the people there are just so special. And one of the things I learned in the time there was the importance of your teammates, that if you're in an office with somebody or if you're collaborating on a project, you have to have synergy. You have to have good humans together. And that was just incredible. And I learned a lot about building a team and about how to be slow to hire, quick to fire, making sure that your team you've got the right people in the right place. And I know you've still got a great team there today.
Yeah. I do miss the synergy, though, of everyone always being here live. We've got people coming and going and that stuff. And there's nothing like that. I can't wait, honestly, to get everyone back, because some people are virtual, and I have, folks who don't even live in San Diego working, which is cool. It's great. But man, I'm a very tangible, hands-on person. I think that's why my start was in massage therapy and kinesthetic, but man, oh man, I do miss that, the energy of everyone in a live environment and getting up. I now have a big whiteboard on my wall. It's no longer a white wall. It's a whiteboard on a wall. And there's nothing like the power of a whiteboard. I love whiteboards and having all these smart, great minds thinking about, how do we create more impact and what do we do to change the world? And next thing you know, you got an energy and a fervor on that. Any top lessons learned? Those are your best parts. Any big lessons learned one way or the other, good or bad?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that I learned during my time, but, I mentioned the importance of a team, and then also the lesson of the importance of the culture of your business, and that it starts at the top. The culture of your business is so important. I remember the first day as an intern when I came in, I had no idea what to expect. And I was told by Ryan Rogers, director of interns, he was telling all of us that we need to know everyone's name. And in a space where you've got hundreds of people walking through the door and you're just an intern, my eyes were so wide, like, oh my gosh, I need to know everyone's name. But I saw over the course of working there, the importance of that, you always say the best sound to someone else is that of their own name, and how true it was. And it felt like a family and people were leading by example. And so the importance of culture was huge. Another big lesson for me was the importance of your circle of genius and the people that you're surrounded by. You don't always want to be the smartest person in the room. If you are, you want to find a few new rooms to get into. And when I was at Fitness Quest 10 and certainly at mastermind events or industry events, I felt like I was constantly surrounded by people that were light years ahead of me and that knew so much more and were levels up. And in some ways that was intimidating. And in some ways that was a little bit scary. But I think I learned how to get really comfortable with that. And I learned how to seek that out because of how much I was able to learn just by listening to conversations between a couple of people in a room.
Right. That's good. That's really good. Matter of fact, you talked a few times now about the power of being an intern, because I think half of our staff started as interns. And when you're willing to learn as an intern about a culture and in any industry, any business, and you learn what it takes, you just said two things go hand in hand: interns and culture. Well, three things, and circle of genius. Because now all of a sudden you just elevated, your circle of genius. For anyone out there listening in, especially if you're like a teen or a young adult, you're in your 20s and make sure you surround yourself with, or put yourself in the situation where you're around either the head honcho or the team of people or the business that you want to. Find a way to get inside an organization that you want to be in or be like, and learn as much as you can from the people within the organization, because that's the nectar of the gods right there. Like when I say the nectar of the gods, you're learning the inside DNA of what makes a culture tick. That's gold. So Natalie, that's awesome. Good lessons. I have one last thing to share. And I think you shared a lot, but I think it's really important to bring it into this episode as well, is the mantra of ready, fire, aim. That you're never going to always feel ready to do the important things in your life. That if it scares you, good, you're on the right track. If you feel like you're not sure how to get there, good, that means your dream and your goal is big enough. And that, it starts to cultivate that trust and faith in yourself and stretching your limits and just knowing that you'll figure it out. There were so many things. And that's another thing I loved about my job, is there were so many things we were doing that I didn't know how to do, but I wasn't going to be like, well, no, Todd, I don't think we should do that because I don't know how. You would have just sent me out the door. Right. So it was learning to call on that circle of genius, call people up that know how to do what you're looking to do. So whether it's a young person or a person in a high level leadership role that's just looking to get better or to make a transition or get a promotion, find someone that knows how to do what you want to do, or find someone who's good at what you're not good at and learn from them, ask for advice, and you'll figure it out. I love it. Ready, fire, aim. Sometimes I fire too much, I think. Right? It's like there's that happy meme. I'm like, fire, take action, to the point when you said we were shipping DVDs and everything else. You remember the time? This is a bad memory, actually. I probably shouldn't share it, but I will. That's okay. Remember the time when we were actually we were shipping DVDs, and I think we had our first international order. And I'm like, let's go. And I'm all pumped up, and it was to Australia. I remember it was a dummy account, and they actually got our credit card, and it was a fraud. Yep. But you know what? Lesson learned, because I've seen so many more of those phishing things since then. Yeah. And I've been like, nope, I know exactly what that is. And people are doing it all over the place, especially on Instagram with Bitcoin accounts. They're hacking in. And I just talked to a friend the other day who, they were scammed on some stuff. I do remember that. I do remember. Yeah. That is a bad memory. I'm like, no. Anyway, that's good. But hey, listen, we talk about ready, fire, aim. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna fail sometimes. These are things, even as a leader, as an entrepreneur, that's part of the game. But you just let those things bring you down. You got to keep swinging and make sure your energy goes to where it needs to go. So I want to say thank you, because what you just reflected on, you are in many ways the foundation back in the day of helping us get to where we even are today. And I'm really proud of you, Natalie. And I wanted to have you on today's show because we've been featuring both teammates and former teammates that are doing great things now. And you're a mom. One of the reasons you left, you got married and now have two kids. What are they? 4 and 18 months. 18 months. So you're balancing the motherhood and entrepreneurism. Share with our listeners today what you do and how are you focusing your time? Yeah, these days, my focus in my business is as a leadership strategy consultant. So I go into organizations and help them develop their leaders and also retain their best talent. My expertise is in the energy to lead. So my vision when I went back to school to get my master's in exercise physiology was to take the organizational development piece
and the exercise physiology piece, blend them together for total human performance. And so that's what I get to do every day. And I love it. I love what I do. As you said, I'm also a mom of two, so I'm balancing that. I live in northern Minnesota now, so we are in the depths of winter. It was like negative 15 degrees outside, but I stay active, playing sports and hiking, all those fun things. And I really like to practice what I preach in terms of always cultivating my own energy so that I can lead the clients that I have and the team that I have as well.
When you say consulting with teams, primarily small businesses, mid-level businesses, large businesses, what level of businesses do you primarily work with?
Sure. Well, a lot of my work right now has been, when I go in personally, it's been with smaller organizations. And then I also still am a top affiliate with my father's business. So him and I work together a lot. And when he brings me in, we're consulting with global organizations, teams with 25,000 employees. And so we just impact small parts of the business. So no matter what we do, it's always on a very personalized, customized scale to solve whatever problems are happening in the business as it relates to leadership or customer satisfaction, human influence across the board.
Well, I know your father's influence has been huge on you, and I want to give a shout out to Don Brown.
Yes.
Because, Don was out here for my Impact Leadership Day. We had a retreat out here in 2021. And Don, who was the senior statesman in the class, one of the senior statesmen, and I asked Don why he was here. And he said, you know why? Because learning never stops. And I got to get better. And there's a whole wave of people who I need to help. And I was fired up. I was ready to run through a wall by listening to your father. I was like, let's go, Don. So I know he's been a great teacher and mentor of yours as well. And to see you doing what you're doing now with so many different organizations, Natalie, is just inspiring. Let's talk about leadership. Let's talk about leadership and that you see a lot of different entrepreneurs, but if we were to talk about leadership skills, what do you think are the top leadership skills that you need to do to have, I'll say, lasting impact? You've been around impact for a long time, but what are some of the top leadership skills that you've seen are necessary to have a great organization?
The top 3 leadership skills by far are to, number 1, have the ability to be present. Number 2, to show empathy. And number 3, to be intentional and target your influence.
Break them down for me.
Yeah, I can expand on each one of these. So the ability to be present. I'm a big believer that in leadership, you go first. The burden is on you. You set the example. And so your ability to be present with yourself and take care of your needs and be attentive to what it is that you need in life and in leadership gives you ability to be present with other people. Because if you aren't present, then you can't show empathy. You can't target your influence and be intentional. So it all starts with this ability to be aware of and attentive to your needs, to take care of yourself, to show that self-leadership, and then be there in the moment with other people, to be paying attention to what it is that they say, what they don't say, what they need. And you shared in the mastermind a couple months ago, there are 3 enemies of being present. And I wrote those down. I've got them in my notes today, and I want to share them for the listeners because I think they're so impactful. The 3 enemies of being present that you shared are, number 1, worry about the future, which leads to stress and anxiety. Number 2, nostalgia about the past. And number 3, distraction in the present. So if you think about those 3 enemies of being present, if you're worried, nostalgic, distracted, how effective are you going to be as a leader when you're engaging with someone else? Yeah,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Keep going. This is good. I'm taking notes on my own notes. I
love it. So when we talk about being present, right, it can be a very simple thing to say and not always easy to do. So there's a few things that you can do to be more present. And the first thing is to identify and turn off your distractions, turn down the noise. Very simple thing to do, not always easy. So it's things like putting your phone on do not disturb, getting rid of emails while you're on a webinar. Like, can you imagine if I was like texting right now while we're having this conversation? But people do that. We're addicted to distraction and to the multitasking and the busy. So working on, if you can't turn it all off, at least turning it down, especially when you are engaging with someone else. Let them know that you are there for them.
Yeah. I call them focus bubbles. How do you create times where you create focus bubbles so your energy can be so, you talk about energy to lead, like your energy could be so focused on what needs to get done that you're not getting distracted? Because in this age of distraction, I don't care if you're a 13-year-old, like my daughter is 13, or you're 35, you're 50, or you're 75. Distractions can really creep in, and they become a habit, and they rob us of productivity. They rob
Absolutely.
us of doing our best work. They rob us of our energy. So I think, that's a great reminder on distractions.
Absolutely. So turning down the distractions, and then engaging your five senses. And this is a tip actually from my dad. He talks about engaging your five senses. So when you go out on your daily walk, don't take your phone with you. Even sometimes don't even take the music. Notice the things that are around you. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? How does the wind feel on your skin? If you're here in northern Minnesota and it's negative 15 degrees outside, it doesn't feel so good, but you notice, you're aware, you're here and engaged. And you notice all of these things are personal. So this is me paying attention, me turning off the distractions so that I can be calm and confident and engaged. And when you're able to do that, and then the next thing is able to stop and breathe. Do you ever notice when you're really hurried or feeling stressed, a lot of us hold our breath. And there's been studies that show that how our breathing patterns have changed and how blood pressure has increased because we don't breathe as deeply anymore. And so if you're thinking, gosh, this sounds a little challenging, I'm not sure if I can slow down, the best thing you can do is to just push your chair back right now, close your eyes, and take 5 deep breaths. It's as simple as that, to really slow yourself down so that you can be more engaged, more present, be where you actually are instead of thinking about all the other things or thinking about the future or the past. And being present allows you then to do the second thing, which is important, which is to show empathy with other people.
Before you go to empathy, I have a question for you, because this is an interesting point. You consult, lead on leadership. You also have an exercise physiology background. You do yoga. How do you personally or professionally recommend people include breath work? Because you have a yoga background, you have an exercise physiology background. Some people right now are out walking or running up hills and they're breathless, which I love, by the way. It's a form of meditation, right?
Yep.
So how do you personally use breath work, or do you not? It's more through exercise. What do you do or recommend on the breathing side?
Sure. For the person who's busy and is trying to figure out, like, how am I going to fit one more thing in my day? If you have a commute, you can do it during your commute. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Try to match your inhale with your exhale, and don't make it more complicated than that in the beginning. Just simply pay attention to your breath. Again, it's turn off the radio, don't talk on the phone, spend 5 minutes of your commute just taking some time to breathe. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I've been using this thing called the 2-minute drill. 2-minute drill, like in football, it's hurry, you got to hurry. It's chaos. But I always say this is the good players can speed a game up. The great players can slow a game down. And it's no different as an entrepreneur. Is good ones can speed everything up and make it more distracting. But the great players, the great entrepreneurs, they can slow it down so your focus bubble becomes so poignant that as you breathe and you can relax, it's kind of like a sniper, a Navy, an Army Ranger, your breath, man, you got to control your breath in the heat. And to me, the 2-minute drill, where you can just really calm and focused so you don't have anxiety ruling you all the time, it becomes part of a discipline and a skill.
Yep, absolutely. And when you do that, you mentioned like the sniper, kind of everything in life, when you're taking a little bit of time to breathe, comes into focus. You can start to feel, the more you do it, start to feel your heart rate relax, your blood pressure calm down. And there are some people I work with in healthcare that are like, yeah, that's great. I don't have 2 minutes. Like, what do I do then? And so even something as simple as you leave one room and go into another, or as a trainer, you're done with one client and you go to the next one, take 3 breaths. pause for a moment around a corner. I used to do that, like in the training room, just go in for a second, 3 deep breaths, or when you're using the bathroom. I mean, you have to look for these little windows of time. So we do things like that. And then as people progress and they start to see benefits, I have some resources that are, some morning stretches, and do some breathing with those stretches. And just like anything else in leadership, trying to practice what I preach, I really try to meet people where they are. So everyone has a little bit of a different background in terms of what they've done before or their capacity to take these things on. But we absolutely implement the breath work, the stretching, all the things that we know are important.
Let's talk empathy. Talk to me about empathy.
So empathy has been steadily declining for the last 40 or 50 years. That they've done a study, and starting, I think it was late 1970s, empathy took a dramatic drop with college students. And so we've been seeing this over time. People don't care as much as they used to. And some of the explanation for that might be social media, things like that. And then I don't know if they've done studies on this yet, but I'm going to guess that you add in a pandemic and you add in more remote work, and people care even less. People are less connected than they were before. But to be an effective leader, empathy is so important. You have to be able to pay attention to the needs of someone else and meet them where they are. And I will give you a quote from Ted Lasso, which I know you and I both
I love Ted Lasso.
So do I. It's the best show on TV. If you haven't watched this show, I am telling you, it's the greatest thing. But in one of the episodes, Ted Lasso says, "Be curious, not judgmental." And to me, that really helps define what empathy looks like in action. Right now, there are so many things pulling us apart, dividing us. Our egos are being inflated. Our fears are being just stoked and nurtured. And so when you're in a leadership position, if you're able to be present, which always has to come first, then you're able to then be paying attention to that other person and be curious about them. Be curious about what they need, about their performance, about why maybe they aren't performing. And when you're able to do that and to ask and be willing to learn, the answers a lot of times appear in front of you. We look at wanting to put our empathy over our ego. Leaders of the past used to feel like we need to know everything. We need to tell people what to do and have the answer. But leadership now is not like that. If you're able to put empathy first and your ego aside and be willing to be curious and ask, so much opens up in terms of growth of your team, growth of yourself, success. So I think be curious, not judgmental is where it starts.
Man, mark that tape. That is good right there, Natalie. Thank you. And anything Ted Lasso, come on, that's money.
Oh my gosh. Right there. It's so funny.
What else I would say about empathy?
Yeah.
And this is real talk now. As a leader, I think empathy, to your point, you got to listen with your eyes versus your ears. I think in leadership today, there's a lot of invisible illness going on between the ears, and people are living in their own world. And what about me? What about me? What about me? And as a leader, while it can sometimes really beat you down and tire you because you feel like you're always, quote, serving other people, there's a lot of pain in people right now. And I find that if you can try to listen with your eyes and see what's going on and open up dialogue and connect about personal stuff, it helps all levels, including back to the professional responsibilities that one may have within their organization. So I find with empathy is to really, truly care. And I hate to say it sounds so rhetorical about they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Everyone says that. But when I say that, I really mean that is, how do you win the caring game? How do you truly care about your people more? And I think it's slowing down enough to actually watch and listen with your ears and your eyes as well.
I absolutely agree. And it goes back even a step further with being present with yourself. Remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, what the mission is of the business or of the team, and clearing the clutter of all the stuff that happened, all the surface level things that don't really matter. But I agree that it's getting connected with people personally and really caring and finding out what it is that drives people. And are they happy? Are they not happy? What do they need? And for you to be able to do any of that, you have to take care of yourself, because if you don't, it's very hard to care. Like if you're in pain, it's very hard to care if someone else is in pain.
Yep. So guys, we're talking the top 3 leadership skills you need for your leadership efforts to have a lasting impact. What's the third one of the 3, Natalie?
Yep. The third one of the 3 is to be intentional and target your influence. So this is, you started to bring in a little bit of this with your talk about getting personal with people, but it's to meet them where they are. I'll say it again, that in leadership, you go first. It is on you to figure out and assess what they need. A lot of times when I see ineffective things happening, people want to just list off all the reasons why something isn't successful because a teammate did X, Y, or Z, or this person isn't doing that. But if we flip it around and we look at ourselves again and we say, okay, how do I meet them where they are? How do I assess where they're at, whether it's from a tactical standpoint or a personal standpoint, and start there, the rest starts to take care of itself. Because if you start to look at meeting them where they are and you're realizing, oh, okay, they've been late the last 3 days, or they've called off 4 days in the last month. Something's going on. And to your point, instead of like bringing down the punishment and the sanctions, have a conversation, right? And just ask, that idea of learning to ask. If you don't know, if you're trying to be intentional and you don't know where they are or what they need, ask them. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them how you can help. And then this is another tip from Don Brown, my father, be quiet. Give them 7 seconds to respond. And that's a really long time. I think that was like 2.5 seconds and I started to feel uncomfortable. So it's hard, but have a conversation and be intentional. And we can talk a little bit about the targeting your influence, if it makes sense now, Todd, about, well, okay, how do I meet them where they are and how do I give them what they need?
Before we go there, I have one more question, because leading today is a lot different than it was 2 years ago. Many organizations that you work with, and I even speak with, a lot of their employees aren't always present in their location.
Yeah.
You're leading people in a virtual environment. What are any lessons that you have learned or share in your work about leading in a virtual environment? Anything to point out?
In a virtual environment, if you're having Zoom meetings and stuff like that, like we are right now, turn your cameras on.
Amen.
Turn on their cameras.
Say that 5 more times, please.
Yes. Turn your cameras on. We need to see each other. I think there's great benefit to virtual work, but if your camera is off, who knows? Like, first of all, we can't see each other. We can't look at each other's expressions and our body language and things like that. But I think it was some stat, like if you're on a virtual meeting, only 20%, if that, of people are actually on the meeting. They're clicking around, they're doing other things. So whatever you can do to make sure people are there. And the other piece of that, and which will make those virtual meetings more effective, is to make the meeting smaller. Make from a agenda standpoint and from a who's there standpoint. Really ask yourself that question, who really needs to be there? Because a lot of times we include everybody and that's just not the right approach, because not everybody needs to be there. And then if we have everybody, we think we need to pack our agenda. And if our agenda is too big, you know this, Todd, like we don't really go deep on anything.
Yep. So would you say shorter meetings and more frequently, or just shorter meetings and less frequently?
Well, I think it all depends. I don't think the meeting necessarily has to be shorter, but if it's like, let's say you and I are collaborating on a project. In the very beginning, we wouldn't necessarily need every single person on your team to be there. If it's like let's strategize this idea, bang out some high level thoughts, right? We might talk for an hour and a half, but we get everything done. And then you might say, all right, let's pare this down to a timeline, and let's bring in Amelia Ann and Julie. And then we get that set. And then maybe that meeting's 45 minutes. And as you go, you can kind of figure out what you need, but I think you have to approach it strategically every time and don't just do things how they've always been done, because
so good. I think that as a leader, these tips and tactics are some of the things that leaders are facing today. I love the first one, turn on the darn video. If you're a teacher out there, God bless you, because there's nothing worse than teaching and all your students don't have their video on. If you're leading a meeting and your team doesn't have their video on, it's not good. You cannot communicate effectively. You got to be engaged. Again, watching with your eyes. There's nothing worse than doing a keynote and having a bunch bunch of black screens and you're like,
oh yeah,
is anyone out there? It's
right.
Like 500 people. And you're like, is anyone listening or are there 500 people listening? Turn on your phones or turn on your screens. I think is good. And then I like that shorter meetings. Let's move on to the next aspect. To your point, I want to talk about any routines that you feel, or even mindset shifts to implement into your workday on an everyday basis to refresh your energy, because especially if you're virtual, your energy can wane. And there's times and circadian rhythms throughout a day. But any energy tips that you have to you can really stay focused and lead with purpose?
Yeah, my biggest tip is to establish a good morning routine for yourself.
Yep.
It's starting the day focused on you, prioritizing your needs so that later in the day you can prioritize the needs of others. I think some of the mindset things that need to come first, though, are really important. And those are to start small, give yourself permission to start small, to start over when you need to. I hear from so many people this block about being able to start over and not wanting to admit that they failed, or not wanting to admit that they couldn't do it in the first place. So number one, if you need to start over, allow yourself to start over, show yourself some grace. I mean, I had to start over with my fitness a couple of days ago because my whole family got COVID and I didn't work out for 2.5 weeks. So, I mean, this is what I do when I had to start over. So it happens to all of us. And I think that the other piece is starting smaller, get consistent showing up for yourself with the little things before you try to do the life-changing big things. Now, I'm a big fan of setting huge, big goals, but if you can't do the small things like putting your phone on do not disturb and not checking your email until you get to work, if you can't drink 8 ounces of water before your coffee, if you can't prioritize sleep, if you can't do the small things that allow you to do the big things, then the process is a little bit backward. And a couple of books, I know you love these too, a couple of books that really highlight this well are The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy and Atomic Habits by James Clear. Those two books will break those couple of things down, because leaders have a lot on their minds. You have a lot going on, a lot of responsibility. So it's really hard to back things up and focus on you. But if you're able to start small, do the little things, get 1% better, not be expecting the world of yourself, then I think that sets you up for success. And the morning routine, focusing on you. So many leaders that I talk to, I mean, they're checking their emails at 5 o'clock in the morning in bed. And the reason why that's so ineffective is I ask them, well, when you do that, it probably gets you a little bit stressed out. You start thinking about all the things you have to do. Are you able to take action on any of that between the time you look at that email and the time you drop your kids off at school and get to your desk? And they're like, well, no, but it just gets me really stressed out and I yell at my kids and I forget what I need to do. So a couple of things I have folks do is just don't even look at it. Don't look at your email until you sit down at your desk, or at least until you've, got everybody breakfast on the table or walk out the door. So Todd, it's these little tiny tweaks that can have just game-changing impact on your day and then on your leadership. Because if you take care of yourself, you can go into work present, and then the empathy and the targeting your influence follows from there.
Yeah, so good, Natalie. And I've talked a lot about this in the past, but habits I've shared, even as habits evolve here in 2022, your habits and what can you fix? What habits can you really focus on, eliminate, or focus on? You talked about morning routine. The morning, I have rules for my life, and I've shared them on this podcast before, but my rules, the first number one rule is do not turn the phone on before the morning routine is done, because I'm the worst. If my phone goes on, I'm checking DMs, I'm checking texts, emails, Messenger, everything but getting in my workout and getting the pop out and getting my mind right and everything else. And maybe even more importantly now, it's not looking at night Why is it you're checking your emails at night and an email comes in that is just writhing you and angering you and like, why did I check my email right before going to sleep? That's not a good move. So these are rules. I don't even have habits. They're rules. And if the rules are broken, there's going to be a punishment. Like you're not sleeping good that night, your mind ain't right, or you're not getting in your own personal leadership, to your point. And next thing you know, your energy is waned and you don't show up present as a leader. And the second thing I'll share on that would be, those are two great books, Darren's book, Compound Effect, and James Clear. We've had James on before on the show on Atomic Habits. In my Get Your Mind Right book, in the chapter on focusing your time and energy, I talk about getting those focus bubbles, the focus bubbles where, for me, I try to work in 90-minute blocks. And while some might be 30 or 60-minute, I go 90 minutes where phones are off, all notifications are off. And if I can get in one 90-minute block a day, I can get a lot done. If I get in two, man, that's a productive day. If I get in two 90-minute complete focus blocks, I'm writing emails, I'm coaching the mastermind or the GSD program. And then if I get in three, watch out world. Now, if you really do the math, 90 minutes times three, you're not even talking a half a day, but I'm talking like almost if you do that, that's 3 hours, that's 4.5 hours of actual productivity a day. The rest of the time is connecting and leading and everything else. That's some serious stuff. But if I can get in 2 to maybe 3, okay, watch out world. So can you have the discipline to actually shut down the world and focus on what needs to be focused on? Now, maybe part of that 90-minute block is meeting with people. You've got to do strategizing, or you got to lead, you have reviews, whatever it may be, but work and discipline yourself so that you have these very focused time and energy zones. Good stuff, Natalie.
I think you bring up a really important point with those 90-minute energy blocks too, or working blocks, is that after the 90 minutes is up, this is another habit that keeps your energy high through the day. You need a break. Yes. You need to take a walk, do a little stretching, go get some water, stretch, whatever it is. They've done research that looks at our brain's ability to have directed attention, and we get what's called directed attention fatigue. So if we are just trying to work, and you start to realize your cognitive abilities are diminishing, your decisions aren't as clear and as purposeful, you likely need to take a break. And they've also proven that nature, so going for a 10-minute walk in nature, restores your directed attention. So many busy leaders are like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for breaks. I just have to go. And the story behind it, though, is if you take a break, if you allow yourself to slow down, you will actually be more effective, get more done by taking breaks. And so that's another key habit that I highly encourage anyone listening to do, is to take those breaks, take a walk, and come back to it. It's
good. Last part I want to talk about is this, because leading today is different. And I think whether you're leading virtually in a virtual environment, or you've got your team in your actual building, talk about moments of time. If I was interacting with somebody, how do you really target your leadership to the moment? Are there ways that you recommend and encourage a leader to have positive interactions with their teammate, their colleague, their employer, or their employee, so that you can maximize the time, maximize the moments? Thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. I am a big fan of situational leadership, a situational approach, and also the Leaders Protocol is a model that Don Brown created and that we teach. And the foundational piece of it is to first assess what is the moment? What is the conversation about? And so you want to be very specific about what you're communicating in that moment. You don't want to have it too cluttered, just like a meeting. You don't want to have too many objectives. You want to keep it focused. Once you can define that, what are we talking about? What is the task? What we like to say, what is the task we're discussing? Then you want to look at their performance. It's almost like a little decision tree in your mind. Are they performing, or are they not performing? It's a very clear and, in my mind, simple question, not always easy to answer. And the way you can answer that is to define what is performance. And performance, what performance is not, is it's not they used to do it. It's not they should be able to do it. And it's not they could do it. Performance versus non-performance is Are they performing to a sustained acceptable level according to your standard right now? And if they're not, then they're going to need one side of the leadership strategy, which is to be very specific about tasks and task behavior and checking for understanding and making sure they have the resources they need. If they are performing, then the conversation can shift and it becomes a little bit more of that supportive. What do you need from me? This is a check-in. Let's decide when to meet next. And so just that simple change of looking at performance as, is it happening right now in the moment or not? So often we have, especially new people come onto the team or people are promoted into positions of leadership that they were never in before. And we think just because they have a bunch of tactical experience that they can do this new job. And so anybody who's new, to say they're not performing, it's not a bad thing that someone's not performing. It just means that they need more task specific direction from you than once they have a little more experience and when they are performing.
Yeah. I think anyone who's a leader has been guilty before of hiring someone and then because of their background, expecting that they can do the job and turning them loose because you don't want to, quote, micromanage. So you let them loose and then a few weeks later, you're frustrated because the job isn't done up to your standards or as you would do it. Mm-hmm. So the next thing you know, there's this animosity or you're a little afraid to give the feedback because you don't want to hurt their feelings, right? So they think they're doing the job. You're not happy. And the next thing you know, you have dissension on the ship. And then you've got to have a heart-to-heart come to Jesus talk. And that's never good. So what would you say is the best way to ensure that someone, when you're leading on the one side of the table or the other, is that you get off to a good start and there's communication improves? How would you recommend doing that?
Yeah. Well, first thing is to set very clear expectations, to set expectations, to go through the goals and have it be a two-way conversation with the other person, because you want to check for their understanding. Just because someone nods along and says yes doesn't necessarily mean that you're on the same page. And so clarifying expectations and also looking for proof of performance. So we look at things in a rule of three. So just because someone makes a mistake once doesn't always necessarily mean that they're not performing. But if they do it 3 times in a row, that's a pattern, that's a trend. And so that's when you want to get more involved. And so by clarifying expectations and then also taking the time with people, we like to turn people loose so that we can go and do other things. And it's really hard for us to slow down and take the time to meet with somebody. But I can guarantee if you take the time to check in, to check work, to make sure things are moving along the way you need them to be, you will save yourself so much time on the back end.
Yeah.
There was a teacher I had in high school who used to say, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when will you have time to do it over? And I think that's so important when it comes to whether it's onboarding someone new or launching a new project with your team, is just making sure that you are clear about all of the variables, taking time to check in. And again, when we go back to the meeting idea, is have meetings, but have them be very specific. Sometimes it's just checking in about 2 or 3 different variables, wanting to see progress and not letting too much time between check-ins go by.
Natalie, how long ago approximately were you in high school?
Let's see. Like 20 years ago.
So let's say 20 years
20 years ago. Yeah.
The reason I ask is this: that's great leadership.
Yeah.
You just brought up 20 years ago, a teacher, a leader said something to you that still impacts you. That's leadership. If you don't have time to do it right the first time, then when are you going to have a right time to do it right the second time, to do it over again? That's great leadership. Now look at that lesson that was imprinted in your brain over 20 years ago. And we talk about, the energy to lead. You never know what you're saying to your teammates, colleagues, employee, how it's going to get imprinted in their brain. So you do it right the first time and don't have to make mistakes. And whether that costs you time, energy, money, whatever it may be, to slow down. All of us, myself included, many times we're doing our most important work is to slow down and to speak with someone. And I think one of the $1 million questions that I have learned in my leadership evolvement here is the question at the end is, how can I better support you? do your job the right way. So it's on me. How can I better support you do your job? And then if they have an answer, okay, then I need to do a better job in supporting you. But here's what I'm going to recommend you do, A, B, and C, so that you can get the job done right the first time. So we can create that impact that we want to create. Man, I'm loving this conversation right here. It's so pertinent. Anything to add to that, Nat? It's good.
I think it just goes back to that idea of you setting the example as a leader. So if you are making sure that you're getting specific with the task, and sometimes, by the way, you might have to break it down till you get to the real thing that you're talking about, making sure everyone's on the same page. But as a leader, it's just setting the example, exemplifying the behaviors, the values, the principles that you want your team to also show. So if you're thinking, well, why would I do these things? Well, because do you want your team to do them too? Do you want your team to be cameras on, engaged, or do you want them to be texting and working on other things? Yeah. So if you go first, you set the example, they're going to do what you do. And that's the same for your children as well. You know, you look at leadership and parenting, that we can't say, well, do as I say, not as I do. That's true in business and in parenting. And I think that if we can personalize that and take anything away, it's just looking at how can I be better? How can I get 1% better every day so that I can be better for the people that I'm leading, both at home and at work?
Yeah. And ultimately, it comes down to being able to empower your people. I mean, you look at someone like yourself, Natalie. You started as an intern, was a trainer at Fitness Quest 10. You helped, the TDE brand for several years, and then you started your own family, and now you're actually leading and consulting leaders and entrepreneurs, businesses around the country. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all of these great tips, tools, tactics, thoughts on leadership, and that if someone wants to learn more about you, what's the best way that they can contact you?
Sure. Well, I've got a couple things. The first is just my website is nataliempeterson.com, and you'll see a bunch of different things there. And then I also have an Energy to Lead self-assessment. So we talked about a lot of different habits, different things we can do. And Todd, I think sometimes as fitness professionals ourselves, we can take for granted just all that we know and how to give ourselves what we need. Well, what I created is a self-assessment and then model that will help you figure out what it is that you need in the moment so that you can double your impact and energy in 7 days. And so I'll give you the link for that as well, but it's that nataliempeterson.com/E2L assessment. And you'll get your self-assessment and you'll get some tips on, based on where you are today, based on your health and your happiness as a person, here are the things that you can start with to start feeling better immediately within a couple of days. And I can guarantee that.
Well, one more time, can you repeat that?
Sure. It's nataliempeterson.com.
M as in Mary?
M as in Marie. Yes.
Marie.
Yeah. My full name, nataliempeterson.com/E2L assessment.
Perfect. Guys, I'll put that in the show notes as well. So if you didn't get that, just check out the show notes as we do each and every week. We have detailed show notes, and I'll put Natalie's link in there so you can take that quick assessment. And anywhere else, Natalie?
Well, I am also on Instagram. That's a little bit more of my podcast and my fitness, the women in leadership things that I do. And that is at Natalie Petey. So Natalie Petey. And then I also have a podcast called The Mom Entrepreneur Playbook. You should check that out. It is an amazing show, and not necessarily because of me, but because of the women who come on. So if you are a woman in business looking to be inspired by other moms that lead and want to find out how to have a career and life you love without missing out at home, go check out that show.
Natalie, that is awesome. Folks, check out her podcast. Take the assessment today. Natalie, any final words that you have for our great listeners today?
I just want to say that whatever it is you want to do in your life, you can do that. You can do that thing. Have your vision, get 1% better every day, continue to listen to podcasts like this one, believe in yourself. And let's go forward being curious, not judgmental. Let's all make the world a better place. Thank you so much for having me, Todd. Absolutely. What a better way to end than on a Ted Lasso quote. That's right. Thanks, Natalie. Love you, girl. Thank you.
Man, oh man, did I really, really enjoy that conversation. Not only were there some just crazy good nuggets in there, I talked about gold, some gold nuggets on leadership and energy, but truthfully, to see someone that started with me as an intern and then become a standout trainer and then help us on the corporate side as our growing organization from 2011 to 14, she was a huge impetus to actually help us grow to even where we are today at TDE. And I just really, really appreciate and respect all who Natalie Peterson is. And the content she delivered was awesome. But I'm so proud because when we talk about impact, and we talk about legacy, to see someone who's doing such amazing things with so many different companies and organizations now. And, she's still part of our team. She's in my mastermind group. And when I asked her to be part of today's podcast, she was so excited to share. And I hope that you could really experience that in her voice and the lessons she shared of just how special of a woman that she is and what a great mom she is and a wife. And man, oh man, follow Natalie Peterson. Check out all of her resources. Again, check out the show notes as well. Speaking of which, I want to make sure each and every one of you have the opportunity to check out, go to todddurkin.com and check out what I've got coming up. When I talk about God-sized dreams, I talk about energy and the energy to lead. You've probably heard by now that I have a program coming up called the God-sized Dreams Coaching Program. And this is something that I've been working on for over 6 months with my team. And you've been hearing from my team about what they're really excited about. It's coming up, and we talk about health and energy and vitality. This is paramount to your own productivity and performance of how do we really operate at our optimal self, our optimal wellness, our optimal fitness, our optimal health, and all that we do. We talk about mindset. Get your mind right, get your mind right, get your mind right. How do you keep your mind right when your mind ain't right? And my God-Sized Dreams coaching program, we're going to make sure we offer all the different ways that on a daily basis, you can win the battle between the ears. Also, one of the things I'm most pumped up about in the Get Your Mind Right coaching program is faith. And how do we lean into our faith more? And how do we get closer to God? And really on a daily discipline, do those things. I'm going to share very intimately some ways that we can do that. And not just theoretically, but actually lead you with what I'm reading and what I'm praying about so we can get together and really have a faith development program as well. And lastly, when I talk about God-sized dreams, I've shared several times before that it's not just this booming voice hearing down that, what you're told to do, but how do you get the divine clarity, the clarity for your life and your legacy? When I talk about more passion and more purpose in your life, how do you live every single day with more passion and with more purpose and to have the vision of what your life is supposed to do? That's what the God-Sized Dreams coaching program is all about. I invite you right now, hop over to todddurkin.com, check it all out. Let me know any questions you have because, man, I am so fired up. When we get this program rocking and rolling, I'm going to be sinking my teeth in deep to the God-Sized Dreams coaching program. So without further ado, thank you for listening to today's show, The Energy to Lead. I hope it was of great value to you. Please don't forget, it always helps us and our program if you can give us a 5-star rating and write a review. I want the reviews to go through the roof so that we can create more impact in the world for 2022. So my friends, without further ado, remember today, continue to train hard to eat right and go live inspired. Create some impact today, my friends. Peace and God bless. I'm out.